Hi. Earlier today I went to see Bohemian Rhapsody, the new biopic of Freddie Mercury, written by Anthony McCartan and directed by David Fincher, Bryan Singer, and Dexter Fletcher. Singer just walked away from the production towards the end, and Fletcher came in and finished it effectively. It's not that good, and the reason I think is the screenplay, as is often the case with these things. I've seen two previous films written by McCartan, Darkest Hour and The Theory of Everything, and I didn't like either of them, and I absolutely hated Darkest Hour. He writes very superficially, and he fictionalizes far too much. He doesn't have a sense like Werner Herzog of making up a lie that is closer to the truth. He simply creates nonsense. There's that awful scene in Darkest Hour where Churchill goes on the tube and there's an interracial couple in 1940 and it's absolutely fine, which is... The Dark Crystal is more realistic. And the story of Freddie Mercury as it's told is clearly highly sanitized and clearly highly simplified. There are a lot of elements that are missing. Queen playing in Sun City in apartheid era South Africa, that's gone. There seem to be a string of fictional arguments that don't ring true as being realistic. There are huge chunks of their career that have been ignored. The fact that they were the go-to band for movie soundtracks in the early 80s, because we have Who Wants to Live Forever, which was written by Brian May for Highlander, being written by Freddie after he discovers he's been diagnosed with AIDS, which didn't happen until after the Live Aid concert, which forms the climax of the movie. So there's a big disconnect in terms of truth and story here. And it's not a matter of when the story and the legend, when the truth and the legend, rather, are coming to conflict with the legend. This is just creating a story out of whole cloth. Rami Malek is excellent as Freddie Mercury, but he's not being given enough to portray the character, or the man, in fact, truthfully. There's so much being changed and sanitized, and he's put through a very generic, dull plot mechanism where the band sort of splits up when Freddie goes off to record his solo album, which weirdly is never named. It's called Mr. Bad Guy. Why is, does someone hold the rights? But then they get back up, they then get together again for Live Aid. My understanding is that the band didn't really split up in any way. They went off to work on other projects with the understanding that they would reunite after a certain amount of time and carry on working together as Queen. They just wanted to take some time apart to pursue their own interests, which seems perfectly reasonable. They've been living in each other's pockets for a decade. So it's a competently made film, Singer's behaviour notwithstanding. It's well acted, the cast is generally very good. Mike Myers has a cameo as a record executive who makes an in-joke about no one's going to listen to this 6-minute opus, Bohemian Rhapsody, in cars and bang their heads, and there was dead silence from the audience when he said that. It's trying too hard to be an easily digestible version of the story, and not to be a truthful portrayal of events and the man Freddie Mercury. As a result, it feels like a failure. I don't think it's reasonable to call it a failure. On its own terms it succeeds, but it should have been a great deal more. I can't help but wonder what it would have been like with Sacha Baron Cohen playing Mercury, because that was on the cards for a very long time, and he wanted to be tougher, wanted to be more realistic. It wants to make it a warts and all portrayal of Mercury, rather than this sanitized, oh, he's done some terrible things, he's rude to his friends, and the gay element is skated over. It's not portrayed in any depth relatively sexless. I think that's the real issue. That Mercury felt so much like a libertine. We see one party, and it's got various interesting, unusual-looking people, and that's kind of it. He kisses on the mouth a few times. There's never any sense of sexuality, just flamboyance, and it's not trying hard enough, to be honest. And I think the reason is just money. It's been a huge success, which I think just says more than anything else that Queen is still a hugely popular band. And I honestly don't think that you would get much more watching the film than you would reading a decent biography of Mercury or the band, or listening to their records.